hit the home stretch, I want to focus on two concepts around wind down. If this environment just simply isn't working for you and the solutions we've come up with to this point aren't going to cut it. It's a big deal to consider, and our last two experts are as good as they get in their spaces. First, I want to turn to a regular on Avalan's expert team panel, Adam Treiger. Adam is always full of great information and sirens as well again, but today I'm asking him to comment specifically on what to do when things aren't going to work. Adam is a partner at Stowell, Zeilenga, Ruth, Vaughn, and Treiger, LLP in Westlake Village, California. He concentrates his practice on drafting and negotiating business agreements, handling legal entity formation, maintenance and dissolution, and on representing buyers and sellers in mergers and acquisitions. Adam is also a super lawyer, we seem to have a theme here, and an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship at Cal Lutheran University, another theme. He is a Provisors Networking Group leader and a vice president of the board of the Employer Advisory Council. Adam, I'm going to bring you up here as I'm becoming better and better at navigating through the process. I want you to, if you could, talk a little bit about what a buy-sell provision is and why it might be relevant in today's conversation.
Sure. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate the opportunity. A buy-sell provision is a agreement between, it's a provision in an agreement between two co-owners of a business regarding how to buy one another out. They are important for separating from each other at a later time without litigation or too much strife. And they're also important so that the partner who remains in ownership is not forced to be a partner with someone that they don't know or wouldn't have otherwise wanted to be a partner with them. These provisions are usually in shareholders agreements, partnership agreements, or limited liability company operating agreements is where they're most often found. The idea is that there would be an event that would trigger the buy-sell mechanism where one party would be able to buy out the other without the other party, the seller, that is, having to agree again that they would sell. So in effect, they'd be forced to sell. That would be some of these triggering events that are typical would be the death of one of the partners, and therefore the estate is the one who's selling, or the disability of one of the partners so that they can't do the job anymore, the bankruptcy of one of the partners, the divorce of one of the partners, or sometimes even there's buy-sell provisions based around what partners are supposed to be doing in the business, and if one partner stops doing that, that could be a triggering event as well. Sometimes the triggering event is just the whim of one of the parties, and those are known as puts and calls. So if a partner has a whim to get out, they can do what's called put their shares to the other partner to buy, and if one partner has a whim to buy the other guy out, they could call the shares to them, and the other partner would have to sell. And finally, these buy-sells have a formula in them for how much the purchase price is going to be and the terms of the purchase, whether it's a lump sum or over time. So that's what they are. They're relatively uncommon in partnership agreements. I mean, I wish they could be in every one, but they're uncommon because just like a prenup at the beginning of a marriage, people don't want to talk about how we're going to separate right when they're starting their business. And sometimes by the time their business is up and running really well and being profitable, and maybe there are some problems, people don't necessarily are not able to see eye to eye at that time. But when they are done at the beginning, they can be very, very helpful. So I think you asked how do they apply to this particular time we're in, this COVID-19 crisis. So shall I speak to that now?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, I have to imagine that there are going to be partners, people that are in business that have different risk tolerances for the environment that we might be in. Someone might be willing to keep going, and someone else might want out. And can this trigger a buy-sell provision? Where are we at?
Yeah. So good question. I was thinking that this COVID-19 crisis, unfortunately, can trigger some of these events that are often in buy-sell agreements. I mean, some people may not make it. They may pass away, which would have the death trigger there. Some people might get so sick that they won't be able to continue in their partnership, such the disability trigger. Some people might lose their livelihood, hence the bankruptcy trigger. And so a lot of these buy sells could be triggered in effect by this COVID-19 crisis. I think that also on the puts and the calls, this might be a good time for people to want to either lock in a lower price if they have a formula based on the way income comes in. This might be a tough time for a business, which might allow the price to be lower if you're trying to call in the other partner's shares at a purchase price. Or if you want to put your shares and get a value, you might want to do that before it gets worse. So I can definitely imagine a lot of partners, business owners, triggering these partnership buy sells right now. If there is no buy sell and somebody wants out or somebody dies or et cetera, unfortunately, there's no easy way to make that happen. The partners can come together and make an agreement, but like I said, when the agreement is needed is usually not the time when one can be made. The way that the interests of the two are oftentimes too far apart. Or if not, there's litigation to get an involuntary dissolution or some other kind of a separation by litigation, which is the worst case scenario, but at least it is there to be a backstop if necessary.
So that's typically the direction that it's going to have to go for someone that didn't necessarily put that buy sell provision in. If someone dies, wants out, or otherwise, it's ultimately going to come down to negotiation between the parties, then attorneys, and possibly courts. So there are other scenarios that can play out if there's not a buy sell provision in place, or is that what we're faced with?
Yes, that's exactly right. There are other ways out. Like you said, negotiation. The person more powerful who wants it less is going to win. Or if you can't come to a deal, it'll be a lawsuit when and if the courts ever open again. That is.
So before I let you go, I want to ask you: is this a good time for someone in our audience to actually review their partnership agreement to see if there's something in there about separation, dissolution, or otherwise? Is this the right time to do it?
Well, I think that if you can tear yourself away from the employment law issues and the CARE Act loan issues and the insurance issues and all these other pressing issues, times like this really bring to mind that things can change for the worse and very quickly. And given that, I think it's a good time to blow off the dust from your partnership agreement to take a look and see what's in there, see if you have a buy sell, what it says, see if it needs to be updated. Talk to your partners about whether you might want one for the future. Talk to your lawyers about whether it's a good idea. I think now is as good a time as any to take a look at that.
Yeah, I definitely think that we're faced with one of those it'll never happen moments that just happened. So I think that'd be really good advice. Adam, thank you. Thank you a lot. Especially for taking on, one of the less positive or exciting parts of what's happening in our world right now. I really want to tell you how much we appreciate that information.